Welcome in to another week of rankings with the college football playoff. I'm Rachel Baribeau. I'm your social media insider. I'm your college football playoff influencer, whatever you want to call me. I'm here with you every single week leading up to the final rankings and leading up to everything that we want and everything that we're looking forward to, and that's the playoff this year. We're eagerly awaiting the chairperson of the committee, Rob Mullens. He'll be with us very shortly. He's been doing interviews, and we'll get your questions. This is the neatest part of this. It's social media, right? And so all week long, we've been asking you across my platforms, Rachel Baribeau on Twitter, on Instagram, on Facebook, and the CFP platforms. What are your questions? What do you want to know? What do you want to know about the process? And I have a few of those questions here. So just so you know for the future, if you ask a question, you definitely want to come here and make sure that see if your questions gets asked. Hello, Rob. How are you?
I'm great, Rachel. How are you doing tonight?
I'm doing great. All right. I have to start here and just say, one of the things that we talked about since the inception of the playoff is just how beautiful the regular season is. How there is, if you will, play-in games. There are games that, and I know you guys don't project, but there are games that help determine what's going to happen the next week and the next week. One of those was just played between Alabama and LSU, and we know now that one will be played between Alabama and Georgia in the SEC championship. If you will, just talk to me about the beauty of these play-in games and the regular season as is discussed inside that room.
No, that's one of the great things about college football, Rachel. And I think having the playoff has helped that. And that is that every single week matters. And last week you had, 3 ranked versus ranked games. And, obviously you get to test yourself and the committee gets to watch that and see the results. And every game matters. But when you have those ranked versus ranked, obviously it's something that the committee can use to evaluate where to do the next week's rankings.
All right, I had a question that was from a listener, and they said, what are some of the other factors you look at besides head-to-head when comparing two teams that have obviously played each other, right? So like a Notre Dame and a Michigan. What other factors go into that, Rob?
Well, we have access to an incredible amount of data. So you watch the games, and then you see how teams progress as well. That game was week 1, and then you see the developments. Obviously, we have access to injury reports, all kinds of data, and then the results of every other game. So, there's a lots of pieces of information and lots of debate and dialogue about what you see, how you evaluate the data. So, each and every bit of that goes into the conversation in the room.
What's funny, last week we talked about these iPads that you guys have. I actually asked for one of the iPads. I just went for it. I said, you know what? The answer is going to be no unless I ask, and I was flat turned down. But I did ask for one of these iPads, and if somebody's just joining us this week for the first time, tell them how amazing this technology is that you have access to.
Yeah, so 2 pieces. One, the iPad, obviously you have access to an incredible database that has just every kind of statistic you could ever imagine, and also inside of it, it has some tools that allow you to compare certain teams, which is very helpful. When you see teams that are close and you can put them side by side, it makes a big difference. But the specific piece that you're talking about, Rachel, is there's an app on our iPads where when we wake up on Sunday morning, there's 20 games in a really condensed format. So everything from whistle to snap is taken out. So you can watch a game in somewhere between 45 and 60 minutes. And it's very convenient when you're trying to consume a lot of games in a short period of time.
Rob, were there any revotes on teams this week?
Yeah, having been through the mock, you understand how that works. And yes, it's standard every week. When we go into great detail and we scrub each and every team, it's very standard practice for a member to ask for a revote of a sequence. And that certainly happened several times this week. When you think about what happened last week. Between last week's rankings of 11 and 25, nearly half of those teams lost. So there was a lot of movement in the middle. And so there was a lot of changing parts. And it took a lot of time for the committee, and that included some revotes.
All right. What was the biggest discussion this week, the biggest argument this week? Can you give us a little something of what went on inside that room?
Yeah, probably just repeating what I just said. When you have nearly half of the teams ranked between 11 and 25 lose, that there's a lot of conversation and debate because you're comparing a lot of like teams. And then some have 2 losses, some have 3 losses. So, you're truly trying to find your way when 7 of those ranked teams lose and you're trying to figure out who to slot where. There was a lot of conversation.
All right. Every single week that we've done this in just a couple of weeks, but leading up to it as well, I've gotten a lot of questions about UCF. They got a double-digit win and remain at versus Temple, which is a winning program, and remain at 12. What was the discussion surrounding UCF?
Yeah, UCF did, 52-40 win over Temple, and Mackenzie Milton continues to look great at quarterback. Their offense is very dynamic, but their defense gave up almost 700 yards. When you watch the game and you get in the room, that defense and strength of schedule was still a part of that conversation.
Rob, one of the things that I heard you say, because I'm privy to some of the questions that you're asked on the backside, and you talked about the fact, I think this is super important for college football fans to understand as they're standing around their water cooler. You guys don't do projections. You don't project out.
No, we are very disciplined in only looking at the results to date. We never look ahead. We focus on this week. It happened to be through week 10, and that's it. And we start each week with a clean sheet of paper. So our rankings that we did last week really don't influence this week. We tear it up, look at week 10, all the results from weeks 1 through 10, and we start over.
Would you be okay with maybe one day allowing cameras in that selection room, in that war room, for people to be able to have an understanding of what goes into it?
Now, I don't think that's my decision. I'm sure it's been asked before. But one of the reasons the committee works so great is, one, you get 13 outstanding football experts from diverse backgrounds with diverse experiences. And, because of the confidentiality and the way the room is set up, everybody has the opportunity to be completely candid, put everything on the table. I would worry that if you brought cameras into the room with some sound, that it might impact the way the thorough debate, the honest, the candid debate happens. So that's up to Mr. Hancock and his staff ultimately. But I do think it works because people feel comfortable. It can be 100% confidential and candid.
Rob, thank you so much for your time this week. We've got questions that we'll hold until next week because we only get a little bit of time with you. So enjoy your week. Enjoy the week of college football. Enjoy that iPad. I'm telling you, I go to sleep thinking about it. I wake up thinking about it. Maybe one day I'll get to sit where you sit on that committee after my career. But thank you so much for your time this week. So appreciate it.
Thanks, Rachel. Appreciate what you do. Thank you for being the college football playoff influencer. See you next week.
Bye-bye. Thanks, Rob. And to all the college football fans out there, hang tight. We are winding down an amazing, amazing season of college football and marching towards the playoff. And make sure that you stay tuned to all of the social media channels of the CFP all week long and get your questions in because they will be asked. Until next week, enjoy the football.